episode of True Tales, I'm going to tell you how I knew I was going to buy this house here in Castelnaudary, France. So, I lived in San Diego, California, and I loved living in Vista, California. Vista is this, what I call the last vestige of affordable real estate in North County in San Diego. I mean, it's starting to skyrocket now, but Frank and I lived in North County. We moved there in 2014 from Annecy, France, and we thought that we were going to stay in San Diego for the rest of our lives and we were going to be Californians because we loved being in North County. So we moved back and we did not own a home, but we wanted to buy a house, but we were living at the beach in Oceanside, California. Had a 3-bedroom, 3-car garage, ocean view beachside apartment for $1,800. I mean, this you would never find that now, but that was us, and we were so lucky. I look back now and I go, "Gosh, we were lucky." And anyway, so we finally do buy the house, which I have a fantastic story for, but that's for another episode of True Tales. And we live in San Diego. We live in Vista, and we buy this fixer-upper, and we're spending every freaking day on weekend fixing this house up, and we're doing it. And when you're stretching your money and your paycheck, you feel like you don't have any money, but we're doing it, right? We're fixing the house, we're completely restoring it, we're working jobs, we have little kids in daycare and private school and all the things, and we're stretched then, but we're doing it. And one day Frank and I are walking, and I hear Spirit say to me, very clear as day, and I said it or repeated it to Frank. This message was, you're going to live here for 8 years, and then you're going to move to your next house. 8 years. I said to Frank, we're going to live here 8 years, and then we're going to move. And he's like, how do you know? I'm like, I just know. Like, I heard Spirit tell me. So we're wondering, oh, are we going to buy a bigger house in San Diego? And there's this one particular house I was really interested in. It was an architectural home. It had a cool pool, but it needed a lot of work. And it was for rent. And I had my agent at the time contact the owner. No response. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's not. And every time I would look at the map of San Diego and try to muscle test to see if there was an area that we would be moving to, it was always weak. I'm like, where are we going to move to? There's no other place in the United States that I could consider moving to. Maybe Manhattan, we thought about that. Because I really love New Yorkers. I think that New Yorkers are really cool people. I always get along very well with New Yorkers. Maybe it's my honesty. Maybe it's that I'm just so direct. I don't know. But New Yorkers for me are like great, but we looked and there wasn't anything there. And there was nowhere else that I would rather live in the United States. Yeah, San Diego's crazy expensive. I mean, it was at minimum 12 grand a month in all our life expenses. I would not recommend the average person to go to San Diego unless you're willing to work all the time, every day, girl. That's just how it is in San Diego. It's not cheap. So I'm thinking, where are we gonna live? Where are we gonna go? And then one night, I have this dream. And it's like I step into a whole new world, but it's my world. I step out of my house on Capri Drive in Vista. I step out of it. And instead of the cul-de-sac that the house sits on, and instead of the houses across from us, it is nothing but perfect, beautiful grass. The most perfect, beautiful country club grass golf course you would ever see in your life. Better than any golf course you would ever imagine. Better than any prairie. The most beautiful grass. And the light was like a beautiful sunrise that you had never seen in your life. The most beautiful sunrise. I felt like I was in heaven. And I'm looking around and I turn. Instead of my house, the 2-story home that I lived in, it was not there anymore. It was a different home. It was a huge home. It was a bigger home. And there was a sliding door. And inside the door, I gravitated. I didn't have a body. I just gravitated in this dream in through the sliding door. And I looked around inside. And I telepathically knew that this house belonged to a man. He was single and that he was getting it ready for us. And inside it had like kind of like a man cave vibe. You know what I mean? Like when a man lives in a place, it's not really like, and I'm talking straight guy, I'm not talking gay guys, because gay guys have themes, they have aesthetic, they have a look, it all is cohesive. I'm talking to straight man, single. It's wealthy. Like inside, it was like wealthy, like, you know what I mean? But it was just like a straight divorced or single man, older guy. That was the energy that I got. And that was his house, like, you know how guys are. They just kind of, it's like my husband's room. They just put all their cool stuff in there and it doesn't really make sense, but it's their stuff, right? It's man cave. It felt like a man cave. And from this dream, I telepathically got that this was an older man, single man, wealthy, and the house was a big house and that he was getting it ready for us. And that was 2 years ago. That was a 2 year ago dream. And I was still in law school at the time, still a year out from graduation. And I was thinking I was going to take the California bar, practice law. But even then, I would have dreams and I would have no visions whatsoever of me practicing law. It was like so bad that I was like so worried that I was telling my tutor, I'm like, I don't think I'm going to practice law. I was even telling my mentor, Oliver Diaz Jr., like, I don't see it. I was like, I just don't see it. I don't feel it. Why am I going to law school? I just don't. But I love going to law school. I love learning the law. I love social justice. I love corporate governance. So I enjoyed myself through law school, as hard and grueling as it was, but I could not see a future of me practicing law in California. And at the same time, I'm having growing pains. I'm feeling that our house is too small. It was like 2,400 square foot house. And I'm like, this house is way too small. My kids are getting bigger. And it was like crazy because we had spent all these years and all this money fixing it up. And it was like absolutely gorgeous. And it was like perfect, but it felt too small. Like it got to the point where energetically, I was like, I felt like I was bumping in every corner. This is just the feeling I got. And I knew it was time for us to move, but I didn't know what was going on. And then one day, Frank and I go on this cruise to Canada. Oh, God, Canada, gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Vancouver, Canada, Whistler, and we're on this gorgeous cruise, winter cruise. And he's starting to have feelings like, I need to leave my job. And it's like these weird, deep, unsettling feelings. And I can tell he's intuitively starting to feel it's time for him to go, right? He always gets these like feelings and like he'll get laid off or something will happen. But anyway, I said to him, look, we need to make some big changes. And I said, if there's no change inside of you or whatever, by the time we get home from the cruise, I said, we're going to sell this house. And on that cruise and that experience, it's almost like we rededicate our love to each other. It was like the most weirdest thing. We had this like wild experience at the Bouchard Gardens in Canada. And we're just like, in a weird way, we're like crying and loving on each other. And I got really sick with the urinary tract infection and it was just like this crazy story and I'm like I got sick and I'm puking on the side of the road near the port. It was just wild. Like there was just this upheaval energy in us and we rededicated our love to each other in this beautiful garden place. It was and you know what, it was so crazy. We were crying and we were holding on to each other. It was so weird. It was so us, right? And we get home from the cruise and I'm like, we're selling this house. And we put it up for sale. But it was this crazy, wild, like, search for this house. And we had a friend who's a real estate agent searching all throughout France for us, flying to different places. And he'd be going places. And I thought we were going to buy this house, and that didn't work out. And we thought we were going to get that house, and it didn't work out until we finally see this house. And we don't even know if we're going to get this house or not. Like, we hadn't sold our house. We had to pay cash for it because nobody's giving loans. So we had to sell this house in order to buy the house, and we're not getting any bites whatsoever. And if we were, we're getting low balls. It was like this horrible experience. And this guy, this friend of ours comes to this house and he goes, I, the French expression, a mouton avec cinq pattes, like a sheep with 5 feet. and it's like a metaphor for your dream house. And he's like, I can't say that like all the other ones were your dream house, but this one I think could be the closest, the sheep with 5 feet. So I said, okay. But I really was hesitant because Frank showed me pictures of the yard and it looked like crap and I didn't want it. I was like, I'm not living in a townhome. I wanted like a mansion with like green rolling hills and gardens and like a villa. And I wanted like a huge property, 5 acres. And, I wanted something gorgeous. And Frank's like, how about this townhouse in this middle of nowhere village? And I'm like, no, no, absolutely not. I don't want it. I was being such a brat about it. No, I don't want it. And he says, but the guys building a pool, they're working on it. And there's no pictures whatsoever. There's no information about this house. And the pictures I saw were like, they weren't great. I wasn't in love. He's like, but hold on. Hold on a couple more months. The pool will be done. So we wait 2 more months. And finally, Frank shows me the pictures of the pool in the garden. I said, that's it. That's the house. That's the house. That's the one. And so we ask our agent, tell us about this guy. And he says that the owner of the house is a divorced man. He'd been divorced for quite some time. And he's obviously a wealthy man. And he had spent the last 2 years building this pool in this garden with his own 2 hands by himself. For real, we did talk to him. He said, I spent 2 years. 2 years. The exact time from my dream is when he got the idea to build the pool because I told Frank, I'm not living in a townhome in the middle of the city. Like I want a garden. I want beauty. I want romance. You know what I mean? I want the French fantasy girl. Like I don't want to just have a townhome like in the middle of the town. And so he said, so we meet with the owner eventually after closing the house and doing all the things. And he said, yeah, like 2 years ago, I got this idea to build this pool. And I'm thinking, I'm looking at Frank, I'm going, that's the exact time when I had the dream that there was the older, single, wealthy man getting the house ready for us. Like he was getting ready for us. And he did list the house for sale all that time, but nobody was interested in it. No offers, nothing. And it even gets even wilder too because we had not sold the house. We had to make a cash offer. We had to put a lot of money down. And if we did not sell this house, we would still have to pay this big down payment. And our friend said, well, I'll advance you the money, no worries, blah, blah, blah. So that was cool. But we needed to sell the house in order to pay this huge house off. Like, we didn't have a loan. No one's going to give us loans. In France, they weren't going to do that. We didn't have a job. So we had to pay cash for this house. We had to sell this house. And Frank's like, okay, we're going to put the offer in. And in the US, you put an offer, you got 3 days to decide, right? Not in France, girl. That guy took like a long time to decide whether or not to accept our offer. And Frank's stressed and he's like, I don't think the guy's going to accept. And I'm just getting meditated. And this visitation I had from spirits of this house, it was 3 nuns, a man from World War II. And they came to me and said, he's going to accept, this is your house. And I said to Frank, the spirits of this house are telling us, the nuns, the 3 nuns, and the man from World War II who sits in the stairwell said that this is our house and we're going to buy it and we're going to own it. And it took months and months and months. And the guy finally accepted our offer. We finally had a closing date and we finally sold the house and all the dominoes fell, just as the spirits had said. And again, these are not just the only spirits who told us about this. That's another episode of True Tales. But we finally got this house. So that is how I knew that we were going to buy this house in Castelnaudary, was that I had this dream. Spirit told me 8 years, and we moved out after 8 years from the house in Vista, that the man was getting it ready for us, and that the spirits of the house said that we were going to have this house. So, and the crazy thing is, my final point to this was for years I would do hypnosis on myself. I would take a nap exactly 2 o'clock, and I would do hypnosis, and I would get into this sleepy state, and I would imagine that I had a paid off home, and I would imagine that the deed of my home was in my safe, and that I did not have a mortgage. And I would do it over and over and over again. And in California, when you have a $500,000 mortgage, which today people would be lucky to have a $500,000 mortgage, the average house goes for $1 million. But at my time, when I bought my house, I'm thinking, how am I ever going to pay this mortgage off? How am I ever going to own a home? How in this economy? And I would go to sleep, hypnosis state, right before I'd fall asleep for a 20-minute nap, and I would say, I own my home. I would have my own title of my home. And lo and behold, it took years, but I followed the bridge of incidences, all the stepping stones of experience, and now I own my home free and clear. I paid cash for my big old home in the south of France, my dream pool, dream garden, dream house. I call it my Barbie's dream house, my Leslie's dream house, and I own it free and clear. So that is my story of how I got my house here in the south of France. I do believe in miracles. I do believe that when spirit tells you that you're going to do it, I think you need to follow the footsteps. I think you need to step into it and know that life is providing for you a home and that there is a home for you. Because if you go in man's ways, the banks, politicians, corporations, all these things will do anything to keep your dream home from you and have you work and rent for life. But if you live on the spiritual side of things, you can have your heart's desire. You can have the home of your dreams. And that is my story, and I am sticking to it. So have you ever had a story like this? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to know your story. Thanks for sitting with me on this episode of True Tales. I'm Leslie Juvin-Acker.